My name is Claudia, and I'm 38 years old. I'm standing in this executive office for the very last time, looking at the aviation empire I built from 3 rusty planes into a fleet of 47 aircraft. 10 years of my life, every holiday missed, every 16-hour day, every crisis solved at 3 in the morning. The sound of high heels clicking down the hallway tells me she's coming his 23-year-old girlfriend, who thinks she can run an aviation company because she has 2 million Instagram followers. I'm smiling though, because I know exactly what's about to happen. Before I tell you how an empire crumbled in just 6 months, let me know where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to hear what happened when karma finally arrived. I was 28 years old when I first walked into the offices of Heritage Airways, fresh out of Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University with my MBA in Aviation Management. The building smelled like old coffee and disappointment, and honestly, that should have been my first warning sign. But I was young, ambitious, and desperate to prove that a woman could make it in the aviation industry. William Harrington sat behind a desk covered in papers, looking every one of his 62 years. His grey hair was disheveled, his tie loose, and the stress lines on his face told the story of a man watching his dream die slowly. Heritage Airways was bleeding money, operating just 3 ancient Cessna Citations that looked like they'd seen better decades, not just better days. The charter service was surviving on loyalty from a handful of old clients who remembered when William's father had started the company back in the 70s. "Miss Claudia," he said, studying my resume, "you have impressive credentials, but I'll be honest with you. I can only offer you $48,000 a year to start, and that's if I can make payroll this month." I looked around the office, seeing the potential hiding beneath the chaos. The location was perfect, right at the edge of Atlanta's Peachtree DeKalb Airport. The hangar space could accommodate 20 times the current fleet. The certificates and operating authorities hanging on the wall were gold in the right hands. This wasn't a dying business, it was a sleeping giant. "I'll take it," I said, "but I want operational control, full authority to restructure." William laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "My son Marcus is supposed to be learning the business, but between you and me, he's more interested in his boat parties than balance sheets. He shows up maybe once a month usually, with a different girl on his arm." That was my first introduction to Marcus Harrington through his father's disappointed description. I wouldn't actually meet him for another 3 weeks, when he strolled in, wearing a $5,000 suit and introducing his girlfriend of the week, a cocktail waitress named Amber, who kept asking if we flew to Vegas. My first day was baptism by fire. The maintenance logs were a disaster, with pencil-whipped inspections that would make an FAA inspector weep. The pilots were good people, but demoralized flying equipment held together by prayer and duct tape. The scheduling was done on paper calendars, and we were burning 30% more fuel than necessary because nobody had updated the route planning since fuel cost $2 a gallon. I worked 16-hour days, sometimes 18, when maintenance issues grounded flights. I rebuilt relationships with FAA inspectors who'd written us off as an accident waiting to happen. I negotiated new insurance rates by proving we were implementing real safety management systems, not just paper compliance. I spent nights studying weather patterns and fuel prices, finding efficient routes that cut our operating costs by thousands each month. The maintenance program was my first major overhaul. I hired Danny Rodriguez, a master mechanic who'd been laid off from Delta during downsizing. Together, we implemented a preventive maintenance schedule that actually prevented problems instead of just responding to them. We started tracking every component, every inspection, every single rivet if necessary. Within 3 months, our on-time performance went from 60% to 92%. I remember the night I found the fuel savings. I was alone in the office at midnight, comparing our routes to wind patterns over the past 5 years. By adjusting our flight paths just slightly and timing departures differently, we could use prevailing winds to our advantage. It seemed so obvious once I saw it, but nobody had bothered to look. That single discovery saved us $70,000 in the first year alone. The pilots started to respect me when I showed up at 4 in the morning to help de-ice planes during an unexpected freeze. The mechanics trusted me when I fought for their overtime pay, even when cash was tight. The office staff loved me when I remembered their birthdays and their kids' names. I wasn't just managing, I was building a family. William noticed the changes. Our first quarter numbers showed we'd stopped hemorrhaging money. The second quarter, we actually turned a small profit, the first in 5 years. He called me into his office on a Friday afternoon, and I thought I was about to be fired because we couldn't afford even my modest salary. "Claudia," he said, I'm promoting you to Chief Operating Officer. The salary's only going up to $60,000 because that's all I can manage, but you've earned the authority to run this place properly. Marcus happened to be in that day surprisingly. He was leaning against the doorframe with his latest girlfriend, a yoga instructor named Paisley, who was explaining how positive energy could improve our flight patterns. His expression, when his father announced my promotion, was unreadable, but I noticed how his jaw tightened just slightly. "Congratulations," he said, his voice flat. "I'm sure you'll do adequate work." That night, I celebrated alone in my apartment with a glass of wine and a spreadsheet, showing how we could expand to 5 aircraft within 18 months if we played our cards right. I had no idea that I wasn't just building a business. I was building the instrument of my own eventual betrayal. Year 3 changed everything. William had started trusting me completely, and with that trust came the authority to make real changes. I presented him with a business plan that seemed insane on paper: expand into medical flight services. The hospitals in Atlanta needed reliable patient transport, and the existing services were either too expensive or too unreliable. "Claudia, we don't have the capital for medical equipment," William said, but I could see he was interested. "We don't need it yet," I explained. "We start with non-critical transfers patients who need to get to specialized facilities but aren't on life support. The hospitals will pay premium for reliability, and once we prove ourselves, they'll help fund the equipment upgrades." It took 6 months of negotiations, meetings with hospital administrators, and proving our safety record, but we landed contracts with 3 major hospitals. The revenue from those contracts allowed us to approach Bombardier with a proposal they couldn't refuse. We'd lease 5 new Challenger aircraft with Heritage Airways, serving as a showcase for their reliability in medical transport. The day those first new planes arrived, I stood on the tarmac watching the sun gleam off their pristine paint. Danny Rodriguez stood next to me, shaking his head in amazement. "From 3 junkers to this," he said. "You did this, Claudia." But I hadn't done it alone. I'd recruited 20 new pilots, each one personally interviewed and selected not just for their flying skills, but for their commitment to safety and service. I established our own training program going beyond FAA minimums to create what I called the Heritage Standard. We didn't just want pilots. We wanted aviation professionals who understood that every flight carried someone's loved one, someone's emergency, someone's hope. The maintenance facility expansion was my proudest achievement. Instead of outsourcing major repairs, we built our own capabilities. I hired 15 certified mechanics, creating jobs in a community that needed them. We became the place where other small operators sent their planes for maintenance, creating an additional revenue stream I hadn't even originally planned for. Marcus started showing up more often during year 4, always with observations that showed he didn't understand the business. He'd question why we spent so much on pilot training when we could hire cheaper, less experienced pilots. He'd wonder why we needed such extensive maintenance records when the FAA only spot-checked. He'd bring his girlfriends to board meetings, letting them sit in while we discussed sensitive financial information. "Maybe we should look into cryptocurrency investments," he suggested during one meeting, while his latest girlfriend, a fitness influencer named Tiffany, nodded enthusiastically. "Tiffany knows someone who made millions." William shut it down politely, but I could see his patience wearing thin with his son. Later, privately, he confided in me. "I hoped Marcus would grow into this business," he said, "but at 35 he still acts like he's 22. When I'm gone, Claudia, I need to know you'll keep this place running." The conversation took a darker turn when William revealed he'd been diagnosed with stage 2 lung cancer. He was starting treatment, but he wanted to ensure continuity. "I'm making Marcus CEO in title," he said, "because he's my son and the shares will be his. But you'll be executive vice president with full operational authority. He can't override your decisions without board approval, and the board is just me, him, and you." It seemed like protection enough at the time. I threw myself into the work even harder, determined to build something so strong that even Marcus couldn't destroy it. We added cargo services, becoming a feeder for FedEx's network. The steady overnight revenue transformed our financial stability. We opened a second base in Charleston, then a third in Nashville. The fleet grew to 35 aircraft, a mix of passenger and cargo configurations. I created Heritage Academy, our internal training program that became so respected that other operators paid to send their people through it. We were featured in Aviation Week as a success story, the small operator that could. I turned down offers from United, from American, from Southwest. Why would I leave? This was my creation, my family, my life's work. Year 6 brought Marcus's most significant relationship yet. Brittany Sinclair was 23, blonde, and had built her Instagram following by posting bikini photos from exotic locations. She had 2 million followers and absolutely no business experience, but she had something more dangerous, ambition wrapped in a pretty package that Marcus couldn't resist. Brittany thinks we should modernize our image, Marcus announced during a meeting while she sat next to him in a designer dress that cost more than most of our employees made in a month. She has experience in brand management. Posting selfies isn't brand management, I said, perhaps too sharply. Brittany's smile never wavered, but her eyes turned cold. I've built a following larger than this company's entire customer base. I think I understand modern marketing better than someone who still uses email as their primary communication method. The room went silent. William coughed, breaking the tension. Let's focus on the quarterly numbers. But I saw how Marcus looked at her like she'd just slayed a dragon on his behalf. I saw how she whispered in his ear during the rest of the meeting, her perfectly manicured hand on his arm. I saw the future, and for the first time in 6 years, I was afraid. By year 8, we were a regional powerhouse. 120 million in annual revenue, 4 bases across the southeast, 150 employees, who I knew by name. We had corporate shuttle contracts with Fortune 500 companies flying executives to meetings in comfort and safety. Our on-time performance was 96% best in the region. Our safety record was impeccable, 0 accidents or serious incidents. The IPO preparation began in year 8. Investment bankers valued us at $500 million. The prospectus highlighted our growth trajectory, our diverse revenue streams, our industry-leading safety record. What it didn't highlight was that all of this success balanced on one person, keeping the delicate machinery running, and that person was me. William's health deteriorated faster than expected. The cancer had spread despite treatment, and by the end of year 8, he was spending more time in the hospital than the office. Marcus was officially CEO now, but I ran everything. He'd show up for important meetings, letting me brief him beforehand, so he could present my work as our collective success. I didn't mind. The work was what mattered, not the credit. Brittany had moved in with Marcus by then, and she'd started appearing at the office regularly. She'd redesigned her Instagram to feature her as a business mogul in training, posting photos of herself in the Heritage offices, always carefully angled to show her best side, while implying she was hard at work. I've been thinking, she told me one day, sitting in my office uninvited. This company has so much potential that's being wasted. We could be viral on social media. We could have influencer partnerships. We could be so much more than just another regional airline. We're not an airline, I corrected. We're a charter and cargo operator with medical transport specialization. Our customers value reliability and safety, not social media presence. That's exactly the kind of old-fashioned thinking that's holding Heritage back, she said, examining her nails. Marcus agrees with me. The way she said his name, possessive and confident, told me everything I needed to know about where this was heading. Year 9 began with William's funeral. It was a grey January day, fitting for the loss of a man who'd been more of a father to me than my own had ever been. The church was packed with employees, customers, competitors, who respected what he'd built. Marcus gave a eulogy that I'd written for him, stumbling over words about legacy and dedication that clearly meant nothing to him. At the reception afterward, while Marcus accepted condolences he barely acknowledged, I overheard Brittany talking to her friends. It's all Marcus's now, she said. Every share, every plane, every decision, and he's finally going to make some real changes around here. The first change came the following Monday. Brittany was appointed executive consultant with a salary of $200,000 a year. Her qualification, vision for the future, according to Marcus's announcement, we need fresh eyes. He told the senior staff, his arm around Brittany's waist. Someone who understands modern business, not just aviation. Danny Rodriguez caught my eye and shook his head slightly. After the meeting, my core team gathered in my office. Danny, chief pilot, James Morrison, financial controller, Sandra Kim, and operations manager Trevor Washington. They all had the same question in their eyes. It's going to be fine. I told them, though I didn't believe it myself. We've weathered storms before, but this wasn't a storm. It was sabotage from within. Marcus started overriding my decisions, small things at first. He cancelled our annual safety awards dinner because Brittany thought it was too boring. He changed our uniform vendor to a company Brittany recommended, tripling the cost for inferior quality. He hired a social media manager, one of Brittany's friends, at $90,000 a year to post TikTok videos of our planes. The real damage started when he began interfering with operations. He cancelled the maintenance contract I'd negotiated over 5 years, claiming we could get better rates. The new vendor he chose, recommended by Brittany's cousin, charged 30% more and had a reputation for cutting corners. "Marcus, this is dangerous," I told him privately. "Maintenance isn't something you bargain hunt for." "You worry too much," he said, scrolling through his phone. "Brittany says you're resistant to change because you're threatened by new ideas." Brittany doesn't know the difference between a turboprop and a hairdryer. I snapped, my patience finally breaking. Marcus looked up from his phone, his expression cold. "Brittany is the future of this company. You can either get on board or get out of the way." The investigation started 2 weeks later. Marcus hired an external audit firm to examine our books, specifically looking for any irregularities in my expense reports or financial decisions. He didn't tell me directly. I found out when the auditors showed up at my office demanding 5 years of records. They found nothing, of course. Every receipt, every transaction, every decision documented and justified. If anything, they found I'd been underclaiming expenses paying for business dinners from my own pocket when the company card was maxed out during lean times. But the damage was done. Everyone knew I was being investigated, and trust once broken is nearly impossible to rebuild. Our best pilots started looking for other jobs. 3 of them came to me privately asking if they should be worried. "I can't fly for someone who doesn't understand aviation," James Morrison told me. "Marcus asked me yesterday why we need 2 pilots on cargo flights when the planes have autopilot. Brittany suggested we could save money with just 1 pilot per flight. That's not just cost cutting, that's illegal and insane." But when I brought it up to Marcus, he accused me of fear-mongering. "You've built a culture of excess spending," he said, with Brittany nodding beside him. "We're going to modernize this operation, make it lean and efficient." "Lean and efficient gets people killed in aviation," I said. "There's no margin for error at 30,000 feet. That's exactly the kind of scare tactic old guard management uses to resist change." Brittany chimed in, reading from what looked like a Pinterest post about disrupting traditional industries. By March of that year, I was working 18-hour days trying to hold everything together. I was managing operations, smoothing over customer relationships Marcus had damaged with his improvements, convincing pilots not to quit, and fighting daily battles over safety standards. Brittany had redesigned our logo, spending $2 million on a rebranding campaign that confused our existing customers and attracted exactly 0 new ones. She'd hired 3 of her friends as consultants, none of whom had any aviation experience. She'd convinced Marcus to lease a Ferrari as a company car for executive transportation. Our on-time performance dropped to 70%. Customer complaints tripled. The FedEx contract was under review due to reliability issues. The medical transport hospitals were asking for meetings about our recent service degradation. I documented everything, sending detailed reports to Marcus about the decline, the risks, the customer dissatisfaction. He never responded, but I heard from Sandra Kim that he was telling people I was trying to sabotage the new direction because I couldn't handle not being in charge. The final straw came in April, when Brittany announced she'd negotiated a partnership with a music festival to provide VIP transport. When I reviewed the contract, we were essentially providing flights at a loss in exchange for exposure. "Exposure doesn't pay for jet fuel," I told Marcus. "You don't understand marketing," he said. "Brittany has vision, you just have spreadsheets." "Spreadsheets that show we'll lose $3 million on this deal," I countered. "Sometimes you have to spend money to make money." Brittany said a phrase she'd clearly learned from a motivational poster. That Thursday night, I stayed late, finishing the quarterly reports that Marcus was supposed to present to the bank the next morning. I knew he wouldn't even look at them, just read whatever summary Brittany prepared, but I did them anyway, because that's what I'd always done the work, regardless of who got the credit. Friday morning arrived with unusual sunshine for April in Atlanta. I got to the office at 6 like always and found Marcus already there, which never happened. He was in the conference room with Brittany and someone I didn't recognize, a man in an expensive suit who looked like a lawyer. "Claudia, can you join us?" Marcus called out, his tone falsely casual. I walked in, coffee in hand, and sat down across from them. Brittany was wearing my usual seat at the conference table, a small but deliberate power play that told me everything about what was coming. "Claudia," Marcus began reading from a prepared statement on his phone. "Heritage Airways is entering a new phase of growth and development. As part of our restructuring, we're eliminating redundant positions and streamlining management." "Redundant positions," I repeated, keeping my voice level. "Your position as Executive Vice President is being eliminated effective immediately." He continued, still reading. We're prepared to offer you 2 weeks of severance in exchange for signing this non-disclosure agreement and non-compete clause. 2 weeks. 10 years of building his father's dream into reality, and he was offering me 2 weeks. The lawyer pushed papers across the table. Brittany was trying not to smile, but I could see the triumph in her eyes. She'd won, or at least she thought she had. I looked at the papers, then at Marcus, who still couldn't meet my eyes, then at Brittany, who was already mentally redecorating my office. No, I said simply. No, Marcus looked up from his phone confused. No, I won't sign your NDA. No, I won't take your insulting severance. No, I won't make this easy for you. I stood up, straightening my jacket. You want me gone? Fine. But I won't be silenced, and I won't pretend this is anything other than what it is. Security will escort you out. Marcus said, his voice harder now. You have 1 hour to clear your office. I don't need an hour, I said. Everything important in that office is in my head, and you can't take that with you. 2 security guards appeared company employees. I'd hired men whose families I knew. They looked ashamed as they walked me to my office. I'm sorry, Miss Claudia, one of them, Robert whispered. This ain't right. I packed my personal items slowly, deliberately. My awards photos with William, the first dollar of profit framed on my wall. As I packed, my phone buzzed constantly. Word was spreading through the building like wildfire. By the time I reached the lobby, it was lined with employees. Mechanics, pilots, administrative staff, all watching in silence as I walked past. Danny Rodriguez was standing by the door. This isn't over, he said quietly. No, I agreed. It's just beginning. As I walked to my car, I could see Brittany through the conference room window, already sitting in my chair, feet up on my desk, gesturing wildly as she explained her vision to whoever would listen. I sat in my car for a moment, looking at the building I'd spent 10 years of my life in. Then I smiled, started the engine, and drove away. Because I knew something they didn't. I knew exactly how hard it was to keep 150 people working in harmony. I knew exactly how thin the margins were, how delicate the balance between profit and disaster. I knew exactly which contracts were up for renewal, which customers were already unhappy, which regulations were changing. Most importantly, I knew my phone was about to explode with calls from the people who actually kept Heritage Airways in the sky. The first call came before I even reached the highway. James Morrison, chief pilot. Claudia, what the hell just happened? Marcus restructured me out. I said simply, that's insane. You are Heritage. Not anymore. There was a pause. My resignation will be on his desk Monday morning. James, don't do anything rash. You have a family to think about. My family understands loyalty. Besides, you think I'm going to fly for someone who thinks we only need 1 pilot per plane. The second call was Danny Rodriguez. I've got 15 mechanics ready to walk. Say the word. Danny, please, don't destroy your careers for me. Claudia, you hired us when nobody else would. You fought for our overtime, our training, our tools. We're not destroying anything. They are. By the time I got home, I had 47 missed calls. Sandra Kim had already texted that she was submitting her resignation. Trevor Washington said the entire operations team was in uproar. Even customers were calling, having heard through the aviation grapevine that something major had happened at Heritage. I didn't respond to any of them immediately. Instead, I opened my laptop and looked at the 3 job offers I'd been sitting on for the past year. Skybridge Aviation, our biggest regional competitor, had been courting me for 18 months. Their CEO, Patricia Anderson, had made it clear the offer was always open. I sent her a simple email. I'm available to discuss your offer. Her response came in 12 minutes. Name your price. We'll double whatever Heritage was paying. When can you start? The collapse of Heritage Airways was swift and spectacular, like watching a controlled demolition in slow motion, where someone forgot the controlled part. I watched it all from my new corner office at Skybridge Aviation, where Patricia Anderson had not only doubled my salary, but given me complete operational control and an equity stake in the company. Monday morning, after my firing exactly as promised, James Morrison submitted his resignation. But he wasn't alone. 5 senior pilots, 3 junior pilots, and 4 flight instructors all resigned on the same day. By Tuesday, Danny Rodriguez and his entire maintenance crew had given notice. By Wednesday, Sandra Kim and the entire accounting department were gone. By Thursday, Trevor Washington and the operations team had cleared out their desks. Marcus tried to stem the bleeding by threatening lawsuits for conspiracy, but his lawyer, the same one who'd been in the room during my firing, pointed out that Alabama was an at-will employment state. People could quit whenever they wanted for whatever reason they wanted. Brittany's solution was to hire new people at lower salaries. "This is an opportunity," she told Marcus, according to one of the administrative assistants who'd stayed behind and kept me informed. "We can build a younger, more dynamic team." The problem with aviation is that you can't just hire anyone off the street. Pilots need thousands of hours of experience and type ratings for specific aircraft. Mechanics need FAA certifications that take years to earn. Even ground crew need specialized training. Brittany discovered this when she tried to hire her 24-year-old cousin as chief pilot because he had a private pilot's license. Week 2 brought the FAA inspection. It was scheduled routine, the kind Heritage had always passed with flying colours. But without Danny's meticulous maintenance records, without the experienced mechanics who knew every rivet of every plane, things went differently. The inspectors found 17 violations ranging from incomplete paperwork to missed inspections. The fine was $2 million, with a warning that the next violation would result in grounding the entire fleet. Marcus called me that week, his voice desperate. "Claudia, I need to know where the maintenance tracking spreadsheets are stored." "Everything was on the shared drive," I said calmly, "clearly labelled and organised. Your new team should be able to find them easily." "They can't make sense of any of it. Danny Rodriguez won't return my calls." "Danny works for me now," I said, as do James, Sandra, Trevor, and about 40 other former Heritage employees. "We don't provide consulting services to competitors." Competitors. "You went to Skybridge. They made me an offer I couldn't refuse. Respect, authority, and recognition of my value. Novel concepts, I know." He hung up on me. Week 3 saw the first major customer loss. The 3 hospitals whose medical transport contracts I'd negotiated pulled out after 2 critical patient transfers were delayed due to maintenance issues. The contract cancellation penalties were $5 million money Heritage didn't have because Brittany had spent the reserve funds on her rebranding campaign and consultant friends. The FedEx feeder contract went under review after Heritage's on-time performance dropped to 42%. When your business model depends on packages arriving on time, 42% isn't just bad, it's catastrophic. FedEx gave them 30 days to improve or lose the contract entirely. Meanwhile, at Skybridge, I was implementing everything I'd learned at Heritage without the interference. Patricia Anderson understood the value of experience, of safety, of reliability over Instagram followers. We bought 5 of Heritage's corporate clients, who came looking for us after their executives were stranded in various cities due to Heritage's cascading failures. Month 2 of the collapse brought desperate measures. Brittany convinced Marcus to do a social media campaign to attract customers. She created a viral TikTok of herself dancing on the wing of a plane, which the FAA saw as a serious safety violation and added another $1 million fine. She offered influencer discount codes for charter flights, attracting people who expected luxury at budget prices, and then complained publicly when reality didn't match expectations. The pilot situation became critical when one of Brittany's new hires, a pilot with the minimum required hours and no experience with their aircraft type, made an emergency landing after forgetting to properly calculate fuel requirements. Nobody was hurt, but the incident made the news and Heritage's insurance company raised their premiums by 300%. Marcus called me again in month 3. "Please, Claudia, my father built this company. Don't let it die." "Your father built a foundation," I corrected. "I built the company. You and Brittany tore it down. This isn't on me." "Brittany's gone," he admitted. "She left when the bank accounts ran dry. Moved on to some tech CEO in Silicon Valley." I wasn't surprised. Brittany had always been about the image, the power, the money. When those disappeared, so did she. But her damage was complete and irreversible. Month 4 brought more desperation. Marcus tried to sell the company, but who wants to buy an aviation operation with a tarnished safety record? No reliable staff lost contracts and millions in fines. He tried to get loans, but the banks saw the financials and ran in the opposite direction. He tried to bring back the employees who'd quit offering double their original salaries, but they'd all found new positions, many of them with me at Skybridge. The death blow came in month 5, when the FAA grounded Heritage's entire fleet pending a comprehensive safety review. With no flights, there was no revenue. With no revenue, there was no way to pay for the fixes the FAA required. It was a death spiral with only one possible ending. Month 6 bankruptcy filing. The news made Aviation Week a cautionary tale about the importance of experienced management in aviation. The article didn't mention me by name. Professional courtesy in the industry, but everyone knew. Everyone always knows. The bankruptcy auction was held on a Tuesday. I attended with Patricia Anderson and our CFO. We bought 15 of Heritage's best aircraft for 30 cents on the dollar. The maintenance equipment Danny Rodriguez had personally selected over the years went for a fraction of its value. We even bought the Heritage Academy training materials, the curriculum I'd developed over 5 years. Marcus was there looking like he'd aged 10 years in 6 months. He tried to approach me after the auction. Claudia, Don't, I said not unkindly but firmly. There's nothing to say. You made your choices, I made mine. We both got what we deserved. He looked at the auction paddle in my hand, at the list of aircraft we'd just purchased, at Patricia Anderson smiling beside me. My father would be ashamed of me, he said quietly. Yes, I agreed. He would. 18 months have passed since that auction day. Skybridge Aviation is now the largest regional operator in the southeast, with a fleet of 78 aircraft and annual revenues approaching $200 million. We bought Heritage's hangar facilities, their routes, their certificates. Everything William Harrington had built, everything I'd grown, now flies under the Skybridge banner. I kept my promise to the employees who'd stood by me. Every single person who left Heritage in solidarity found a position at Skybridge, most with significant raises. Danny Rodriguez is now Vice President of Maintenance, overseeing a department of 50 mechanics. James Morrison is Chief Pilot, training the next generation to fly with skill and integrity. Sandra Kim is CFO, having proven her worth beyond what even I had imagined. Trevor Washington runs our expanded operations across 6 states. The industry recognized what happened. I received the Aviation Executive of the Year award last month, standing on a stage in front of 500 industry professionals. In my speech, I talked about the importance of institutional knowledge, of respecting experience, of understanding that in aviation, ego and incompetence don't just cost money, they cost lives. I didn't mention Marcus or Brittany by name, but I didn't need to. The cautionary tale of Heritage Airways has become required reading in aviation management programs. How a company worth $500 million collapsed to nothing in 6 months because of arrogance, inexperience, and the dangerous belief that anyone can do anything if they just have enough confidence. Marcus, from what I hear, through the industry grapevine, is working as a real estate agent in suburban Atlanta. His Instagram shows him trying to project success, but the tired eyes tell a different story. He sent me a LinkedIn message last month, asking if I'd provide a reference for a job he was applying for at a small charter company. I didn't respond. Some bridges once burned don't deserve rebuilding. Brittany has reinvented herself as a life coach, selling courses on female empowerment and business success. The irony isn't lost on me. She charges $5,000 for a weekend seminar on breaking glass ceilings, using heavily filtered photos from her Heritage Airways days as proof of her business acumen. I've been told she claims she was a senior executive at a major aviation company on her website. Technically true, hilariously misleading, but I don't dwell on them. My focus is forward, always forward. We're expanding Skybridge into international charter services next year. We're launching a partnership with 3 major airlines for crew training. We're establishing a scholarship program for women in aviation, funded by the profits from those 15 Heritage aircraft we bought at auction. The scholarship is called the William Harrington Memorial Fund because despite everything, I want to honor the man who gave me my first chance. William saw potential in a 28-year-old woman with big dreams and no experience. He trusted me when trust was all he had left to give. The fund will give other young women the same opportunity, but with one crucial difference. They'll learn not just how to build a company, but how to protect it from those who would destroy it through ignorance and greed. I have my own office now, corner view windows overlooking the runway, where our planes take off every few minutes. The walls are covered with awards, photos of our team celebrations, letters from satisfied customers. But the item I treasure most is simple, a framed photo of William and me at the first Heritage Company picnic I organised. Both of us smiling, both of us believing in the future we were building together. Sometimes I stand at these windows watching our planes taxi for takeoff, each one maintained to perfection, each one piloted by professionals, each one carrying the dreams and needs of our customers safely to their destinations. I think about the journey from 3 broken Cessnas to this empire of excellence, about the price of that journey, about the lessons learned in boardrooms and hangars and courtrooms. Success, I've learned, isn't just about building something great. It's about having the wisdom to know when to walk away, the patience to watch karma do its work, and the preparation to seize opportunity when it arrives. Marcus and Brittany thought they were taking something from me when they forced me out of Heritage. In reality, they freed me to build something better, stronger mine. The sweetest revenge isn't watching your enemies fail, though I'll admit there's satisfaction in that. The sweetest revenge is succeeding so spectacularly that your former enemies become footnotes in your success story, cautionary tales whispered at industry conferences, examples of what not to do in business schools. Every morning I drive past the old Heritage hangar on my way to work. It's empty now, weeds growing through cracks in the tarmac windows, dark dreams dead. But at Skybridge, just 2 miles down the road, the lights never go off. Planes are constantly moving mechanics, working pilots, training customers arriving. Life, growth, success. I built an empire once for someone else. When they took it from me, I built a better one for myself. And this time, I made sure nobody could ever take it away again. I structured my equity stake, my contract, my protections, with the paranoia of someone who'd learnt the hard way that loyalty without legal protection is just voluntary vulnerability. The business world loves to talk about disruption, about how inexperience and fresh perspectives can revolutionize industries. Sometimes that's true, but in aviation, in medicine, in any field where lives depend on competence, experience isn't just valuable, it's irreplaceable. Brittany thought she could disrupt aviation with Instagram strategies and motivational quotes. She discovered at Heritage's expense that gravity doesn't care about your social media following and weather doesn't respond to positive thinking. The last time I hired a new pilot, a young woman named Catherine, fresh from the Air Force, she asked me during her interview what advice I'd give to someone starting their aviation career. I told her 3 things. First, respect the knowledge of those who came before you. They've already made the mistakes you're about to make. Second, never let anyone convince you that your experience and expertise are less valuable than their confidence and connections. Third, when someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time, not after they've destroyed everything you've built. She's been with us 8 months now and she's exceptional. Like all our employees, she knows her value is recognized, her expertise is respected, her future is secure. That's how you build a company that lasts, not with flashy social media campaigns or celebrity consultants, but with people who understand that excellence is a daily choice, safety is non-negotiable, and loyalty is earned through actions, not words. Looking back now, I realized that Friday morning when Marcus fired me was the best thing that could have happened to my career. It forced me to stop accepting less than I deserved, to stop building dreams for people who didn't value them, to stop believing that hard work and loyalty alone would protect me from corporate politics and personal jealousy. It taught me that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away with your dignity intact and your expertise in demand. The aviation industry is small. Everyone knows everyone, and stories spread faster than our jets fly. The story of Heritage Airways' collapse and Skybridge's rise has become legend told in pilot lounges and maintenance hangars, in boardrooms and business schools. Young aviation professionals study it as a lesson in management. Experienced executives yet reference it as a warning against hubris. And every woman who's been overlooked, undervalued, or pushed aside sees it as proof that competence eventually conquers confidence games. I still work long hours, but now they're building my own legacy. I still solve crises at 3 a.m, but now I'm protecting my own investment. I still remember every employee's name, but now they know their leader owns enough of the company that their jobs are secure as long as they perform. Sometimes late at night, when I'm reviewing flight manifests or approving maintenance schedules, I wonder what William would think of all this. I like to believe he'd be proud not of Heritage's failure, but of how his original vision lives on through Skybridge. Every safety protocol he insisted on, every customer service standard he preached, every principle of ethical business he demonstrated, they all survive in our operations. Heritage Airways might be gone, but William Harrington's legacy soars every time one of our planes takes off safely and lands on time. The hangar where I first met William now stores our newest acquisition, a Gulfstream G650, the crown jewel of business aviation. We use it for our highest tier corporate clients, the ones who value arriving safely over arriving famous. I had a small plaque installed in the cockpit where only the pilots can see it, in memory of William Harrington, who believed in potential. That's the real lesson of this story, the one I hope you take with you. Sometimes the best thing that can happen is to be forced to leave a place where you're not valued. It opens the door to places where you'll be treasured, where your expertise is seen as an asset rather than a threat, where your success is celebrated rather than sabotaged. Marcus thought he was taking something from me when he chose his girlfriend's ego over my experience. but all he really did was free me to fly higher than I ever could have under Heritage's banner. He thought he was ending my story, but he was just closing a chapter. The next chapter, the one I wrote myself, is so much better. So to everyone watching who's ever been pushed aside, for someone younger, prettier, more connected, but less qualified, remember that competence is a long game. Beauty fades, connections fray, but expertise only grows stronger. Build your reputation on results, not relationships. Document everything, know your worth, and don't accept less. And when someone shows you they don't value what you bring to the table, thank them for the clarity and find a table where you're not just welcomed, but celebrated. To those who think you can fake it till you make it in industries where lives and livelihoods are at stake, you can't. Reality doesn't care about your confidence. Gravity doesn't negotiate. Weather doesn't follow your business plan. And the people who actually know what they're doing will watch you fail not with malice, but with the grim satisfaction of seeing natural consequences play out exactly as predicted. What questions do you have about standing your ground when everything you've built is threatened? Have you ever had to walk away from something you created to find something better? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more stories about resilience, redemption, and the sweet satisfaction of success earned through expertise rather than inherited through nepotism. Share this with anyone who needs to remember that their experience has value, their expertise matters, and their moment of triumph might be just one brave decision away. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the rise, fall, and resurrection of an aviation empire. May your own flights always find clear skies, and may you always have the wisdom to know when to stay, when to go, and when to build something entirely your own. Until next time, keep flying high, and remember, the best revenge is massive success, combined with the peace that comes from knowing you earned every bit of it.